Well, hello, Tim, and welcome back to Experts Explain Trauma. Thank you for being here again today.
My pleasure, Lisa. Always glad to be here.
And we're going to have an interesting topic. We were just talking about it, and it's going to be on narcissism. So here's the question for today. So how do adult survivors of narcissistic abuse begin to rebuild a sense of self after years of manipulation or devaluation, which you've mentioned before? There's both manipulation and devaluation.
Yeah, and I think this is really the key thing is so all of gaslighting, relationship with a narcissist, the codependency, all of it just makes you smaller, less and less who you are, less authentic. So it's eroding you. And so to me, a central key part of healing is rebuilding you, redeveloping a sense of identity. Because a lot of people get to the end of a relationship with a narcissist and number one, they don't have a clue who they are. Number two, they feel so much regret. Why did I stay in it so long? Why didn't I see it sooner? So their internal critic is super loud, but it's a very shaming message. You're a loser. Why did you do this? Don't beat yourself up. You did it because your childhood set you up to do it. You got drawn into it because all those templates. So start with some compassion to yourself. This is where I'm at now. There's no value in beating myself up. Now it's time to rebuild, to learn who I am, to learn to be authentic, to stand up for myself. And so there's an element of this that you have to start with. It's academic. Because what a narcissist has done to you in the gaslighting is they filled your head with thousands of lies that you've believed are the truth. And a lot of those lies are about yourself and about how relationships work. And so you need to be able to start replacing those lies with the truth. And basically it's, I matter just as much as anybody else. That's humanity. So my needs therefore matter just as much as anybody else's needs. So I can go into a relationship and I don't have to bury my needs and take care of the other person. I can go in and express my needs. That feels so wrong. That feels like they're going to reject me. But you're starting to rethink life. So you're deconstructing all of the lies that you've been giving and rebuilding a life that's based on truth.
Right.
That makes sense. And then your emotions can start to catch up. So the compassion to yourself is you're treating yourself with respect, that I deserve to have my needs met. Secondly, you're rebuilding truth and getting rid of lies. Thirdly, you're learning to take care of your own needs. As much as I value having friendships, I don't need to have this man in my life that's somehow going to make my life perfect and meet all my needs. I got to learn to do that for myself. So that when I finally meet a man, I'm not doing it from a place of need. I'm doing it from a place of, we just connect well. We make each other better. And that's a totally different orientation. So it's really relearning life and relationships, what's healthy, how to take care of myself, my own value. And so what I encourage people, that's a lot to unpack. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You'd benefit, again, from therapy, from a program that helps you begin to rebuild yourself and understand your shame and how it's worked itself out in your life, what healthy relationships look like. And just accept this is going to be a lengthy learning process that I'm going to need lots of support and lots of teachers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that this is kind of exciting that I got out of mine is rebuilding my identity or figuring out my identity, not rebuilding it, but figuring it out. And that was kind of exciting because it was like in 2016 is when I realized I have no idea who I am. I was a mom. I was like, I didn't even know the things that I liked or didn't like really, because I had spent a lifetime being a chameleon. I used to call myself a chameleon.
Exactly.
And
so
changing.
a child that's gaslit, so they're attuned to dad or mom, that their moods, their thinking, they're putting their needs aside to meet so basically they're surviving by fawning. that I'm going to be invisible, or the true me is going to be invisible. I'm going to be a chameleon and be whatever they want me to be. That's the only way to get validated and to get some of my needs met. But the result of that is I don't have a clue who I am. I just know the roles that I'm good at playing.
Yes.
And so if you look at a child in safety, where they're fully validated, they're fully accepted for their authentic self, they connect with mom and dad, how do they figure out who they are? They play, they explore, they try 1,000 different things. That's how children figure out their passions, their talents. They try guitar, they try music, they try art, they try football, they try... Some they find they're good at, some they think they're good at, and they find out they're not good at. And gradually they begin to go, this is where my passion is. This is what I'm good at. And then they have accurate mirrors in their life, mom and dad, that give them feedback. And that is how you begin. So the sad thing for people with complex trauma is most of them don't have a very good play, explore experience because they've always been in survival mode and they've always been fawning to survive. And so now as an adult, you have to say, I'm going to let myself be a child and play and explore. And then I'm going to gradually figure out who I am, what I'm good at, what my passions are. And once I do, I'm going to be a force to be reckoned with. But it's going to take me a while to figure that out. But I'm going to let myself go through this play explore period.
And throw out perfectionism, because there's nothing perfect here. And it's okay. Because I would not do stuff because, well, I can't do it perfect. So I'm just not even going to try. And now I have so much fun, Tim. I laugh at myself. I goof up and I'm like, and I laugh at myself. It doesn't mean so much. The fact that I'm doing the podcast is amazing. The fact that I share so much of the stories that I never shared with anybody. It's just not important. It's not my identity anymore.
Exactly. And that's, to me, if you understand complex trauma, it's a life characterized by fear. Fear of getting hurt, fear of failing, because failure always means I'm going to get hurt even more because I'm going to get judged and punished for failing. Fear of being rejected, fear of being abandoned, fear of going through into the unknown, all just fear. And so many people come into recovery and they don't realize that fear is still running their life. And it's really realizing, hey, a child that goes out and tries football, they don't get it perfectly the first time. The child that learns to walk doesn't walk perfectly on the first day. They stumble, they fall for weeks and months before they become good at walking. And they're perfectly okay with that. They fall and laugh about it. They fall and get right back up and try again. We have to have that same attitude, that you don't get perfect at a skill the first time you try it. It's a learning process, and it's okay.
Yeah. Shut those critics down. Shut those critics down that are in your head. And especially when you're on this early journey, it's really important who you share stuff with and be in a safe place, because there are going to be those outside critics that are going to say those things to you that for me, I would sit and ruminate, even though I knew the answer was different than what I was thinking, but it would cause me to sit and ruminate like, why did I do that? And what, so we need to be careful of how much we share and who we share with.
Yeah. And I think it's such an important point, Lisa, because so many people coming out of complex trauma go through getting in a bad relationship, and then they get into recovery, and you look at their support group and they think their support group, their family, their friends since childhood are wonderful, but often they've been part of the problem. They're the critics. They're the ones that have given them bad advice all the time. They're the ones that tell them you just need to conform to these rules and then you'll be good, which means losing your authenticity. And so what you begin to realize is my support group actually hasn't been safe people. And that's a scary place come to realize. And to realize I need to build a new support group. Now, it doesn't mean I throw them all to the curve and say they're crap. But I got to start setting some boundaries where they're not as close to me as I thought they were. They're not as safe and as supportive as I thought they were. I got to create my own support group now from people that I don't even know. And I got to go through the process of finding safe people. Right. And that's a journey too.
So why don't you describe for us what a safe person would look like?
Yeah, it's such an important question, and it's so hard to define because we tend to look at just kind of external. So you look at people dating and they go, he's good looking, he's got a good job, he's good in bed, therefore he's a good date. And I go, does he accept you totally for who you are? Are you able to connect emotionally with him? Because what does a child need in a parent? They need connection. But how do you have connection? The parent has to be regulated. The parent has to be not under stress or driven by shame. The parent has to accept them totally for who they are and is not always criticizing them or trying to fix them or putting them down. So safety is a person that I can connect with, that fully accepts me, that I can communicate and open up and be vulnerable with and not be judged. When I find people then that are like that and who get me, understand me, value me, then I found some safe people. Mm-hmm. So you're looking for some deep internal attitudes that aren't necessarily obvious at first glance.
Right. One thing, I have one friend who's really good at asking questions.
Yeah.
So and oftentimes she's really good at this. Oftentimes she's asking those questions not for her,
right,
but for me.
Exactly.
And that has been most helpful.
Yeah. And I would say for most kids coming out of complex trauma is when they begin to understand their core wounds, it's that their parents never fully saw them or got them mm-hmm. or understood them. So they never felt seen, heard, or understood.
Yeah.
And so what are you looking for in a friend? Somebody that sees you, understands you, hears you, and values you.
Yeah, and supports you right where you're at. That's the thing is loving you right where you're at. I mean, I have found that back in the day when I wasn't real healthy, I was real busy trying to tell everyone how to live their life. And mine was a train wreck, but hey, I got it down to tell you how to live your life. And I have found that when people come at me like that, those are not the safe people. They really mean well in their heart, but they're what they're doing is not going to be helpful at all.
Yeah. And I tell my clients, I can't give you any advice at all till I understand you.
Right.
And if I'm giving you advice before I understand you, then that's dangerous.
Yeah.
So my first priority is not giving you advice. My first priority is listening.
Yeah. Being a good listener. And that's actually tough to do. I've had to learn to not always talk over people, or they don't always want my opinion. They don't care. So thank you for sharing that, because, we always talk about what is a safe place? What is a safe place? But we need to understand what it is. And the one thing that I've learned is I used to just trust people, just automatically trust people, right? And now I've learned, no. They have to earn my trust. They have to, and I watch and observe, and I don't go into, I used to jump into relationships, friendships as well. Well, they were nice to me, so whoo, and I would jump right in with both feet. And now I take it slow for both of us.
Yes. I think Brene Brown's used a wonderful illustration around trust. So she says, when we meet people, if you look at kind of when we were growing up, you had the old jar that sat on the cabinet that you threw loose change into.
Mm-hmm. Still have one.
Slowly built up until you had a full jar of loose change. And she says, often when we meet people, we just give them our full trust as if the jar's full. What you have to realize is the way to go at it is you meet a person, you interact with them, and you go, oh, okay, I can throw one coin into the jar. They built a little bit of trust today. And then the next day or the next week, something happens. Oh, I throw another coin in. They prove themselves trustworthy again today. Over the course of 6 months, a year, 2 years, you go, hey, the jar's full now, because they've got a track record of proving themselves gradually. And I trusted them little by little, one coin at a time. And I think, that's the way trust should work.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes what I've learned to do, because I used to be so reactionary, and I'm learning not to be, is sometimes if they do something that's kind of off, that I'm like, oh, hey, wait a minute. I do kind of process it though. Was I just triggered? Was I triggered? Or did they really do something that was inappropriate? And maybe they were off. Maybe their day was off and maybe they're off, right? So no, I don't throw a coin in there, but I don't throw the jar out.
Exactly. And that's, to me, the key is you don't just say, okay, how come the jar's 3/4 full? Now I'm going to say that that doesn't matter at all. No, okay, there's something else going on here.
Right.
I need to figure out.
Right. I always use the examples of when you know someone's heart, and you know them, you get to know them well enough and they do something off, for those of us that are healing, that could be triggering for us, but we have to, that's where that pause is so important. And you just take a minute and process it.
Exactly.
Thank you, Tim. Again, you have so much wisdom. I so appreciate what you do. I know how much you've helped me and so many others. So thank you so much for this.
My pleasure.
If this resonates with you or you've got a question for our experts, let us know in the comments and make sure to subscribe for more insights on trauma healing.